All right, let's start the record. We have two matters scheduled this afternoon for preliminary examination. They're similar. Don Jerome Slater is present. File number is 251042FY. Mr. Slater is represented by Attorney John Bush. In that case, he's charged with delivery or possession with intent to deliver cocaine. Which way it's charged here is a 20-year felony. Second or substantive offense makes it a 40-year felony. And Burgess Montrell Talbert, 251046FY, possession with intent to deliver methamphetamine, 2 counts, as a habitual offender as well. I think all the witnesses are deputies. Jason Van Dyken is the lead officer in each case. And if I understand correctly from Mr. Bush, each client wishes to have their preliminary examination at this time.
That's correct, Jim.
All right, gentlemen, I think you're all aware of this. I told you before, a preliminary examination is a hearing where testimony is taken, and it must be established by the state that if there's probable cause to believe that a crime was committed, probable cause that you did it. You don't get found guilty or not guilty at a preliminary examination. It's just a determination of whether there's enough evidence to transfer or bind over the case to the circuit court. Ms. Davis, do you have any preference to which one we do first?
Well, it doesn't matter anymore.
All right. Mr. Bush, you have any preference?
I can do it.
All right, well, let's do Burgess Talbert first. Mr. Talbert, would you come up and have a seat? Mr. Slater, this is a public courtroom. You're welcome to stay here and watch the proceedings. Good afternoon, sir. Are you Burgess Montrell Talbert?
Yes, sir.
Here with your lawyer, Mr. John Bush, and you wish to have a preliminary examination at this time?
Yes, sir.
Laura, I used all my white pads the other day on that zoning case. Could you give me some notepads? Are people ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may call your witness.
Your Honor, I want to put on the record that the offer
All right.
is revoked unless he wants to waive today.
All right, well, let's discuss that. What is the offer?
Let me get to it. Josh Robert did the offer. I believe it was 1 count delivery. Restarted, so give me a moment here.
Probably in my notes. Let me get the file up here. No, it was Judge Pattison had this, so there aren't any notes.
Using the new system is not as easy, so I was hoping we can.
I can share what it was, but I'm not trying to jump over it.
No, you're fine. So I want to make sure.
What's your understanding of the plea offer?
My notes, the last offer was possession with the intent to deliver. There would be no drug double and no supplement, and the prosecutor's office would recommend he be screened for adult drug treatment card.
All right, the drug double makes a 20-year, a 40-year offense, and the habitual makes it a life offense. If it is reduced to a simple delivery, it would be a 20-year maximum offense. The guidelines would be scored based on that, and they would recommend your placement in local
Adult drug
treatment court. Just a minute, I got sidetracked here. Do you understand, Mr. Talbert?
Yes, sir.
If you have the preliminary examination the day that offer would be withdrawn or revoked. I don't have a dog in this fight, but do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Spencer, he's joined me for sobriety court staffing.
Yes, sir.
This is the odd number Tuesday, but Judge Pattison is gone this week, so we aren't meeting today.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
We're doing a prelim if you want to get in on that.
No, thank you.
All right. Have a good week.
Thank you. You too. Happy 4th.
You too. All right. Okay, then I guess we're ready to go. Defendant declines plea offer.
Now the people will call Deputy Jason Van Dyken.
Afternoon, sir. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Thank you. Please take a seat. State your first and last name and spell them for us.
Van Dyken, Vandyken.
Deputy Van Dyken, are you on the road patrol for the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you on duty on June 8th, 2025 of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
And around 12:40 p.m., did you have contact with a Burgess Tolbert?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how that came about.
While stopped at the light at Michigan Avenue and southbound 131, I observed a vehicle in my driver's side rearview mirror or side view mirror. After looking out the window as the vehicle approached a stoplight next to my vehicle, I observed the driver making a motion like this, indicating to me that he did not have a seatbelt on, placed a seatbelt on.
And so you were next to this vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this in Three Rivers?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, this is in St. Joseph County?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do after you saw the individual make that
The
motion?
light turned green. I positioned my patrol vehicle behind the vehicle that I observed the driver without a seatbelt on and conducted a traffic stop on the vehicle for such.
And as part of that traffic stop, did you come into contact with Mr. Tolbert?
Yes, ma'am. He was sitting in the front seat, passenger seat.
And the person that you identify as Burgess Tolbert, is he here in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you point him out for the record?
He's the black male sitting to the left of Mr. Bush's right, my left.
Your Honor, may the record reflect he's identified the defendant.
It may.
And after making contact with the driver and Mr. Tolbert, what happened?
I gathered both of their driver's licenses, ran them through lien. Mr. Tolbert was found to have a warrant. He was taken into custody for his warrant.
When you took him into custody, did you transport him to the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened when you got there?
After searching him on scene and not finding anything of evidentiary value, he was transported to the sheriff's office jail by myself. After arriving at the jail, he was removed from handcuffs by jail deputies and placed into the jail's receiving body scanner, which is located at the building.
And what is the body scanner used for at the jail?
It is used for the detection of anyone that may be smuggling illicit substances or items inside the jail that the jail determines or defines as contraband.
And did you observe anything unusual in the defendant's body scan?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you see?
After being alerted by the jail deputy that was utilizing the body scanner, he informed me that he would like for me to take a look at the screen. The screen depicts an X-ray similar to what you would see at a doctor's office of a human body that's X-rayed, but it's in the X-ray is over the entirety of a human body. Somewhere in or about the genital region of Mr. Tolbert, there appeared to be a bulging object that was clearly not part of his person, concealed again in or about his genital area.
And you've been a police officer for how long?
I graduated Police Academy in 2018.
And have you regularly done illegal narcotics investigations?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Was there anything about this that struck you as unusual?
Not as far as narcotics investigations, no, because based off of my training and experience, I have commonly located contraband being concealed on or about the genital area of individuals that I have arrested.
Was he clothed when this scan was happening?
Yes, ma'am.
So after you identified what you believe to potentially be contraband, what happened?
I walked over to the body scanner while Mr. Tolbert was still sitting inside of it. And I asked or gave him an order to hand me the bag. Mr. Tolbert, acted as if he didn't understand what I was saying to him. And I reiterated my comment, give me the bag. I know that you have something on you or something to that effect. to which then he reached inside of his pants and produced a plastic baggie that later was identified to be containing methamphetamine.
And how do you know that it was methamphetamine?
It was tested for methamphetamine, if I do recall correctly. And during an interview with Mr. Tolbert, he stated to me that it was methamphetamine.
Do you recall how much there was and how it was packaged?
I believe it was approximately 1.61 ounces of methamphetamine, packaged in 3 separate baggies that had product being methamphetamine in each one of the 3 baggies. Additionally, there were empty baggies of the same style, being a plastic baggie alongside of it. So it was one large bag with 3 individually packaged baggies of narcotics with empty plastic baggies alongside of it in the original bag.
And those empty baggies, were those like new or used? Had
They appeared to not have any sort of residual substance within them.
And based on your training and experience, what does this indicate as far as
It
whether a person's a
indicates that
user?
the narcotics that were already packaged, to me, the empty baggies are generally to be used to package smaller amounts of narcotics to be sold at a later time.
And in your training experience, what is a user amount typically of methamphetamine?
Generally, users in my training.
Yeah, I guess he's not been qualified as an expert, but he's given expert testimony at this point. So I do think we need to call a halt to this and find out what his experience is.
All right, there's an objection, Ms. Davis.
Your Honor, he is a police officer, has been through the academy since 2018.
Why don't you just ask him a couple questions? I think he's probably got the expertise.
Could you describe to the court your training and experience regarding narcotics?
My training and experience regarding the narcotics would be while employed here at the sheriff's office, starting last year in July of 2024, I have over 20 narcotic seizures within a year. I believe that the experience of being able to detect and locate narcotics being concealed on individuals or within vehicles during my duty would give me reason to believe that I generally don't find more than 1 gram to 2 grams on any given person at any point in time who's not selling or does not have products or items that are commonly used for the sales of narcotics.
Do you do any continuing education training throughout the year?
When it's available.
And in those trainings, have you done any specific to narcotics?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you explain to the court kind of the background of those?
They're trainings that are given online that are mainly directed at areas of concealment on persons or vehicles that I have attended online in reference to the illegal transport or carrying of narcotics.
Your Honor, I believe that he has sufficient knowledge for giving expert testimony as a police officer with training experience in illegal narcotics.
I think so too. I think that Mr. Bush's objection was well timed, but I think you've established a record that this officer is qualified to testify about his knowledge of street user quantities of methamphetamine as a police officer investigator. So you may answer those questions.
Deputy Van Dyken, going back to this amount of methamphetamine and the manner in which it was packaged and the existence of other packaging materials, what would that lead you to believe as being a user or somebody who is potentially dealing?
Based off of my training and experience, the quantity of narcotics that were located on Mr. Tolbert is not generally a user amount. Based off my training and experience in contact with individuals who I have recovered narcotics from being concealed on their person, who have openly admitted to me to being users, in those instances, those have never been in quantities above an ounce.
All right, so do you know how many grams there are in an ounce?
I would have to refer to my notes, but I have it written down in an area to where I have that documented as a cheat sheet for grams to ounces or grams to a quarter, half, or a third of an ounce. It's something that I commonly refer to.
Is it somewhere like 27.7 grams or grams per ounce?
I would say that's close.
How much does a person typically consume if they're a regular user of
It
methamphetamine?
would depend on that person's daily or weekly use.
Minimum amount versus,
I would say there's no minimum amount. During my time as an officer, I would say that there are people who have admitted, not Mr. Tolbert, but people that I have had interactions with to using narcotics admit to me to use daily, bi-weekly, bi-monthly. It depends on how that individual is using narcotics.
and I'm sorry, how much like at a time, like a gram at a time or?
I would say less than a gram at a time, but perhaps it wouldn't be unusual for a user to use a gram throughout a 24-hour period.
Did Tolbert make any statements or admissions about why he was carrying this?
He admitted to me that he knew that it was methamphetamine and stated that he had been around it and claimed to me to be a user.
I don't believe I have any further questions at this time.
Mr. Bush?
Did the driver of the vehicle, was it determined to make any arrest on him for anything?
Can you ask that again, sir?
The driver of the vehicle, was it determined that he would be arrested for any violations as part of this investigation?
No, sir.
And did you have a partner that was with you during this stop?
No, sir. At one point, a trooper with the Michigan State Police showed up, but did not exit his vehicle or assist me at all.
So when you went to the vehicle, which side did you approach first?
Passenger's front door.
And why was it the passenger as opposed to the driver?
It's a common tactic that I use. If I'm along the highway, I normally step away from the flowing traffic that goes down a road. So it's not uncommon for me to still employ that tactic even if it's in a parking lot.
So in your mind, that's a safety feature that keeps you off the highway then?
Generally, I'm farther away from the traffic that goes down the road, yes.
Did you search the general proximity around inside the vehicle of the defendant?
I asked for consent to search the vehicle and it was denied by the driver, which is his right to do so.
So was there a search completed incident to the arrest?
Of his person, yes. Of the vehicle, no.
Was the vehicle ever searched?
No.
Regarding his person, did you find any amounts of cash?
I don't recall.
If you would have found like $3,000, would you written that down?
I would imagine I wouldn't mistake or misplace or forget about $3,000.
But reason being, people are distributing drugs may have cash. So did you find any cash?
No, not on his person.
Did you find on his person any scales?
No, sir.
Did you find any ledgers or notebooks keeping track of transactions?
No, sir.
And sometimes with narcotic transactions, there's multiple cell phones involved. How many cell phones or a cell phone did you locate on?
So it should be noted that upon demanding him out of the vehicle to place him in handcuffs for his warrant, I observed him actively take his phone and throw it back into the car to the driver, which the driver then recovered and remained in the car. I know that drug sales commonly are organized or orchestrated by the use of digital communications, cell phones, Facebook, Snapchat, or any sort of digital media or communication application that can be utilized on a cell phone.
Was there ever any follow-up to get that cell phone to see what?
It would have been one of the intended points and purposes of me asking for consent to search the vehicle, but ultimately the driver of the vehicle exercised his right to deny me consent to search the car.
Did you ask Mr. Tolbert if he'd used any drugs or narcotics recently?
During the traffic stop or during the traffic stop?
Well, so within 24 hours of when you came in contact with him, did you ask if he'd used any drugs or narcotics?
I don't recall.
And if somebody was to buy drugs illegally under the table on the streets, would they not be packaged in the form that you saw them?
Would they not be
And
packaged?
would they be packaged in that form?
Well, one of the baggies of methamphetamine packaged was in a quantity that is less than an ounce, more than a gram. That is, in my training and experience, something that a user would purchase, yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Anything further with this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy Van Dyken. You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Any further evidence, Ms. Davis?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Bush?
Defense question.
All right. Motions?
By the evidence presented by Deputy Van Dyken, I believe that the people have shown that there's probable cause to bind over on both the possession with intent to deliver controlled substance methamphetamine, as well as the possession of the methamphetamine itself. Mr. Tolbert admitted to the methamphetamine being what it was tested as such. As far as the packaging of it and the amount exceeding the regular user amounts, as well as his behavior of throwing his phone off of his person into the vehicle, which is in modern times where people are keeping track of their sales and making contact with people, as opposed to in the olden days having notebooks and ledgers. The defendant was identified by Deputy Van Dyken. He was a passenger in a traffic stop and he had a warrant. So he was searched to arrest. He then chose to not reveal that he had these items on him, and then they were found by the body scanner and ultimately seized at the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office. So with that, I would ask that he be bound over as charged.
Mr. Bush, your response?
Thank you. May I sit down?
Certainly.
I concede to the court that Ms. Davis has met her burden on count 2 on the possession of methamphetamine. I suggest to the court the issue today is what was in my client's mind. Did he have the intent to deliver those narcotics? A lot of typical things we expect with a drug dealer weren't there. Cash, scales, ledgers. Those are the things that we seem to deal with traditionally, show somebody to be involved in trafficking narcotics. My client admitted that they're his. He said it was for his personal use, and I would ask the court to not bind over on count 1.
All right. Mr. Tolbert, you're charged with, you're good, with possession with intent to deliver, which is the same as delivery, and then possession. Your lawyer concedes that the evidence shows you did possess it. The question here is whether you possessed it with intent to deliver, which enhances the punishment by double. As I told you before we started, this is a probable cause hearing. Now, there's certainly probable cause to believe that you did it. You were the only one there. There's no issue of identity here. The question is, did you have a deliverable quantity? 1.6 ounces. I wasn't clear whether that was just the product or product and packaging, but rule of thumb is about 28 ounces per 28 grams per ounce, actually a little more than that, but an ounce user quantities, there's more than enough for sale, packaged separately in 3 separate smaller bags. Also unused bags or unresidue bags that could be used to repackage it. So there is probable cause. I'm not making a finding there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. There's probable cause to bind this matter over to circuit court on both the possession and possession with intent to deliver. The drug double and the habitual simply go along with it. We don't need to make a finding on that here. You posted a substantial bond of $15,000 cash or surety. You've made all of your court proceedings. I'm about to lose jurisdiction over your case. It'll be transferred to the circuit court. We show an Albion address, but I know you were at some time a Three Rivers person. Where are you living right now, Mr. Talbert? You're in Albion. All right. All right, as I said, you've made every court proceeding. You've been in contact with your lawyer. The plea offer in this case is revoked. Drug treatment court seemed like a good option, but I suppose a new plea agreement could be fashioned if the matter can't be resolved. If it can be resolved, you're entitled to have a trial. That'll be some time from now. The next step in the proceeding, the matter will be set for a status conference, probably not until several weeks from now, maybe September or even later. So stay in contact with your lawyer. I don't think he's on pretrial services.
I don't believe so, Your Honor. I would ask that the court, because there's been some question about the form that we've been using with bond, that the bond conditions reflect that he is not to violate any other law in the state of Michigan and not leave the state of Michigan without court approval. There's already the abstinence, not consuming alcohol or using any controlled substances except as directed by the doctor, and submitting to tests upon demand of any police officer. So I would ask that be not use or possess any of
Fair
those.
enough. I thought the bond form had those standard conditions, no other criminal activity and may not leave the state without permission. But nonetheless, those are the conditions. There's no allegation you've done those things. But the matter will be bound over to circuit court except for a status conference.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Talbert, do you have any questions?
Yes, if you have any questions.
No, sir. No, you're good to go. Deborah, I did a bind over. I didn't get one in Slater. I couldn't print one, but here's this one. You can scan it in and then make sure we get it back. Both your clerks and my clerks are mad when we don't give them up the bind over. There's a fight over who gets it first. And as I said, I don't have one in Slater. You guys need a break? You ready to keep going? We're going been a half an hour.
I believe we can keep
Let's
going.
talk to Mr. Slater. Why don't you come up, sir? Did you stop the record? Stop it, restart it. Good afternoon, sir. You're Don Jerome Slater?
Yes, sir.
Of course, I've met you, but I need to identify you for the record. With your lawyer, Mr. John Bush. Deborah, is this similar to the last situation regarding any plea offer?
Yes, double check. The offer at the preliminary examination was to reduce it to possession with intent to deliver cocaine and a possession of heroin, both as a third habitual.
You agree with that, Mr. Bush?
That was the offer that was on the table on the 24th.
And you decline that, Mr. Slater?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's make sure we're on the same page here. I had not seen this in a while, but you're charged with possession with intent to deliver less than 50 grams of cocaine. That's a felony punishable by up to 20 years imprisonment and a fine of up to $25,000. As a second habitual offender, makes it a 40-year, and as a fourth offender would make it a life offense. Count 2 is possession of heroin. Simple possession of heroin. That's a 4-year felony. I don't know how they came up with the schemes that they did, but possession of heroin is a 4-year. Possession of methamphetamine is a 10-year. At any rate, that's also as a second or subsequent offense, which would make it an 8-year maximum, and habitual, I think, would make it up to life. So there's some serious charges. This is alleged to have occurred on March 24th. Once again, Deputy Van Dyken is our witness. Deborah, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Van Dyken, will you retake the stand and I'll re-swear you again for this case? You swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Thank you. Would you state your name for the record, please?
Jason Van Dyken, VANDYKEN.
Deputy Van Dyken, are you a road patrol officer for the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's located in St. Joseph County, Michigan?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you on duty on March 24th of 2025?
Yes, ma'am.
And in Lockport Township of St. Joseph County, did you come into contact with a Don Slater?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what time it was of day?
It was in the earlier morning hours.
And tell the court how you came into contact with Mr. Slater.
While on patrol within the county, traveling on South River Road, I pulled into the boat launch at Stump Bay, which is off of the St. Joseph River. I observed a vehicle solely backed in, a sole vehicle in the parking lot of the boat launch, backed in. Couldn't readily observe anyone inside of the vehicle. And at that point in time, made a citizen's contact with the vehicle.
And what type of vehicle was this?
It was a black Dodge Charger.
And did it have any boat or sort of watercraft trailer attached to it?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Let me stop you for a minute. I'm not clear on the time frame here. You said early. What time were we talking about?
I would say after the sun rose, but before 11 o'clock in the morning, mid-morning.
Okay.
And Deputy Van Dyken, does the time 9:47 a.m. sound accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would have indicated that in your written report, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How did you make contact with Mr. Slater then?
I approached the vehicle, and I don't recall if I called out to the vehicle or observed somebody inside or tapped on the window, but I approached the vehicle and later got into contact with Mr. Slater.
And the person that was in that vehicle, what part of the vehicle was he in?
The driver's seat.
And was he awake or asleep?
I couldn't tell at the point in time that I made contact. But if I recall correctly, when the door opened up, the seat was leaned back and Mr. Slater was seated in the front driver's seat of the vehicle.
Was he the only person?
Yes, ma'am.
And the person that you saw in the driver's seat that identified as Don Slater, is he here in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you point him out for the record, please?
He's the black male seated to the right of Mr. Bush, my left, wearing a camouflage vest and white t-shirt.
Your Honor, may the record reflect he's identified the defendant.
Yes, it may.
When you made contact with Mr. Slater, what happened?
I had a general conversation with him, inquired as to what he was doing. He had stated or made a comment to the effect of I was just waiting to be picked up. At which point in time I asked for his identification just to confirm to whom I was speaking with.
And when you got his identification, did you run his name in
Yes,
lien?
ma'am.
And what did you find?
It showed that it had a warrant for his arrest out of Kalamazoo County. I then asked for him to step out of the vehicle and detained him at that point in time, awaiting for further instructions as if Kalamazoo County wanted him lodged or held on those warrants.
And was he aware that he had a warrant?
I don't recall.
Did you end up doing a search of the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And what brought about that search?
I had asked while Mr. Slater was in the backseat of my patrol vehicle if he had any prior contacts with law enforcement or history with law enforcement, to which he had stated yes, and indicated to me that he had prior involvements with law enforcement in reference to crack cocaine. I then asked for his consent to search the vehicle that he was found in, and he granted me consent to do so. Furthermore, with myself at this point in time being the only deputy on scene, I did indicate to Mr. Slater that if he were to need anything from myself, that I would roll the back window down. So that way, if he called for help or rescinded his consent, I would be able to willfully and actively hear him do so while I was away from my car.
So it's your testimony, it was a consent
Yes,
granted search. Okay. And as part of searching the vehicle, did you find anything of evidentiary value?
Items of evidentiary value were located in the vehicle, but not by myself.
Okay. And after the items were located, did you send them to a lab?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, did you get lab results back?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were the results of the items that were found?
Analysis on 2 items sent to the lab were found to be heroin and cocaine.
And is it accurate that the Michigan State Police laboratory report indicates that the one item was cocaine by itself and that the other was heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine with
Yes,
another mixture?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How were these items that were found during the search packaged when you?
There was
Aware of
one baggie concealing all of the aforementioned items inside of it.
And who found this?
Deputy Miller did.
And that would be Deputy Travis Miller?
Yes, ma'am.
And what in your training experience leads you to believe that this individual was involved in the possession with intent to deliver?
We probably do need to make a record. Granted, we just went through this a few moments ago.
Yeah, but it's a separate record,
It's
I
separate.
understand.
Sure.
We have the same issue we had last time. Apparently the officer does have some expertise in this area, but we don't have any of it in Mr. Slater's record, so I'll
Sure.
ask you to inquire once again.
Deputy Van Dyken, how long have you been a police officer?
Since 2018.
And as part of your training, did you do any training regarding narcotics,
Yes, ma'am.
sales, packaging, and identifying when it is a user amount versus something that might be for sale or delivery?
I've received that training through the discharge of my duty and prior seizures of narcotics, yes.
And have you been on the road patrol with the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office for a period of time?
Since July of last year.
And since you've been on the road patrol, have you come into contact with a number of narcotics users and delivery and sales?
Yes, ma'am.
You already believe that establishes.
I think he said in the early case, he's made 20 seizures in the last year. That's
Approximately 20 seizures within a year on the road patrol here at St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office, Your Honor.
all right. I believe for purposes at least of the preliminary examination, it qualifies as an expert testifying about street and law enforcement and of narcotics packaging, use and delivery.
Thank you. Deputy Van Dyken, can you explain how these items were packaged?
The heroin was packaged individually by itself in a cellophane style or plastic baggie style packaging material, which is common to me based off my training and experience that narcotics are concealed in for transport, sales, use, or otherwise.
Let me stop you because there's a difference between cellophane, which is a wrap, or a baggie.
A baggie of a plastic material. Your
All
Honor.
right, well, how big were the baggies? Sandwich size or the smaller size?
The baggies on the crack cocaine, I couldn't tell you if it was from a sandwich baggie or a gallon size baggie, as the plastic itself was tight to the rock. So if you could imagine placing it inside of the corner of a bag, or if it was a loose bag that doesn't have a corner, pulling a knot, the plastic knot down to the rock tight enough to where you pull the rest of the bag off and you physically have a rock that is tightly
So
contained.
it was
in
just a
plastic.
corner of a baggie.
You could say that, yes, Your Honor.
How many of those small corner baggies, rocks, were packaged separately?
I would have to refer to my report to give an exact number, but I believe there were to be over 4 individual pieces of crack cocaine.
Your Honor, actually, Deputy Van Dyke, would it refresh your memory if you were able to look at your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may he look at his report?
Yes, he did.
Or been refreshed?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, how many baggies individually were there?
Approximately 9 baggies of crack cocaine.
And those 9 small ripped off corners were in one larger bag?
So the bag in and of itself that was located was concealing the crack cocaine and the heroin alongside of it. The heroin and the crack cocaine within this baggie that I am describing were individually packaged inside of the original bag that was containing it.
And based on the quantity of those, and the amount in each of them, what did that indicate to you?
That the individual, being Mr. Slater, who was in possession of the aforementioned narcotics, was possessing them with the intent for them to be sold.
When you say approximately 9, is there some reason why we don't know exactly how many there are?
No, Your Honor, it's just the way that it was listed in my report.
All right, so I guess we'll just leave it at that. Maybe the state police counted them as part of their report.
Did Mr. Slater make any admissions about these items belonging to him?
I believe, if I recall correctly, he stated that the crack was his and that he was a user.
And whose vehicle was this?
The vehicle was not registered in his name, and I believe that he had stated that it was his girlfriend's car.
This isn't the car that was in the accident, is it? It was a Dodge Charger.
No, I think that was different. There's a lot of Dodge Chargers in the
Okay, good.
county. No, I don't believe this is the same one. I don't believe I have any further questions.
Well, what about the heroin? I am not understanding how that's packaged.
Sure, can you describe?
That would be in something that you could call a corner baggie, Your Honor. So the heroin was packaged in its own independent bag. The crack cocaine were packaged individually. And if you were to pick those items up in your hand and place them in a bag and then conceal that bag that was initially was found was concealing a bag of heroin and approximately 9 crack rocks,
Right.
Your Honor.
So approximately 9 baggies of crack cocaine and then another baggie of another substance, which apparently tested to be heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine,
Yes, Your Honor.
which is a Death Star type thing. All right. Were these weighed at any point?
The Michigan State Police Laboratory analysis report would have a controlled setting weight for these items. I believe they remove them from their packaging and get an honest, accurate weight from their scales that are accurate at the lab.
Mr. Slater, there's a special rule for preliminary examinations that the prosecutor can produce the laboratory reports just for the prelim. If it was a trial, they'd have to have the person here that tested it and established a chain of evidence. But just for the prelim, they can submit the reports and the court can consider them. Ms. Davis, are you going to put those lab reports into evidence?
I do have one lab report. It was provided to the defense, and I can certainly email it as an exhibit to the court. Don't have a paper copy of it, but I can get one.
I have a hard copy of it, that would speed up the process.
Sure, as far as that goes, I mean, if the defense is willing to stipulate to the
All right,
weight
Phil.
on it.
Yes, under the court rule, just for prelim only, yes, if you'd submit that, so I can
Sure.
consider that.
And Deputy Van Dyken, the Michigan State Police Lab did complete the testing of these items, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was done by Jerome Waldron, a forensic scientist. Is that your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
And you received a copy of this report and submitted it to the prosecutor's office as part of your investigation?
Yes, it would have attached the case file.
All right. I did send via email the proposed exhibit number 1, which is the Michigan State Police lab results regarding this matter.
Takes a long time to get from there.
Apparently, hopefully
There it
it's
is.
getting there soon.
All right, by stipulation, at least for prelim purposes only, I'll accept the laboratory report. It's dated April 25th, 2025, under the signature of Jerome, Jerome Waldron, Waldron. Thank you.
Deputy Van Dyken, on that report, it indicates that item number 1, which was one of the knotted baggies of cocaine, weighed 0.3077 grams. Is that your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
And so is that just one of the 9?
That would be one of the 9 individually packaged pieces of cocaine or crack cocaine, yes.
And do you know like a usable amount or how much one
That
would
would,
consume?
in my training and experience, commonly be what a user would purchase to smoke in a crack pipe.
Like one, I don't know how to say it, one serving, one,
To whatever you would want to describe it as, but that would be what someone would use as or purchase as a user amount of crack cocaine.
okay. And the other item, number 2, is listed as 0.7525 grams of the heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, and ANPP mixture. And do you know anything about the user amount of that
So,
material?
Based off of my training and experience in prior contacts and cases when I have seized heroin, I know that heroin is commonly packaged in what's called a bindle, commonly a folded piece of paper, not any sort of paper in particular, is folded up in a small manner. And bindles of heroin, in my training and experience and knowledge, are commonly packaged in 1/10 to 1/8 of a gram of heroin. And that is what users of heroin commonly purchase.
And so this would be like 7 times the amount of a
I mean,
user.
if it's a straight 7.0, then that would be, my basic understanding of math would be correct, 7/10 of a gram.
Is there anything else about this particular situation that led you to believe this was more than just a user amount?
I know that individuals who use narcotics, based off of previous interviews and cases with the seizure of narcotics from users, I know them to not commonly use more than one drug substance at a time.
Of these type of substances or in general?
In general, so during questioning in a case in reference to narcotics, if I were to have found, let's say, a gram of methamphetamine concealed in someone's vehicle, it would not be uncommon for me to ask that individual in this circumstance, what's your drug of choice? Generally, they openly admit or before they know that I have seized narcotics from their vehicle or person or otherwise, their answer is generally never anything other than it's meth or it's heroin or it's cocaine. Generally, in my training and experience in my duties on patrol, I don't commonly come across individuals who openly admit to be using multiple drug types or drug substances at any given point in time or alongside one another.
And so the numerous amounts of crack cocaine and then the other item having heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine, that did not strike you as something that this individual would be using in the same time frame? No further questions.
All right, Mr. Bush, you may cross-examine. Just to note, Mr. Bush had some serious leg injury and surgery, and as a consequence, I'm allowed to just ask the questions from being seated. He's still having mobility issues.
Thank you, Judge. The cocaine, the 0.3 grams, you say that's a typical daily usable amount?
That would be something that I wouldn't find to be abnormal, that a user of cocaine could purchase for use.
And if there were 7 or 8 of those packages, that would be about a week's worth then?
I don't know. I don't personally use narcotics myself.
Well, you did say
would-
that you used 0.3 a day, and if there were 7 of those, could that be a week's worth?
It could, but I would say that that would be independent to that individual user who's actively using crack cocaine.
The heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine mixture, was that all of it, or was that just a portion of what was seized that was weighed?
What, can you ask the question again?
The heroin, fentanyl, cocaine mixture,
Okay,
was the 0.725 grams, was that all of that, or was that a portion of it?
I don't know. I was not the individual that tested that baggie of narcotics at the lab. But upon its seizure, that mixture was contained independently in its own corner baggie.
So in all likelihood, that is the total amount of that drug.
Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about that time that you came across the defendant. Was the vehicle legally parked?
Yes, sir.
And was there any signage in the boat launch park that limited hours or when you could be there?
There are, however, he was there inside of the allotted amount of time that people have to occupy the boat launch.
And I'm assuming that as a good road officer, you probably ran the plate when you saw it?
Yes, sir.
Was it validly registered?
If I recall, it was.
And was there insurance on the vehicle?
I do not recall that.
Was there any be on the lookouts or anything for nefarious activity that was going on in that boat launch at that time of that day?
No, sir.
And I'm not sure how much boats are launched on the 24th of March, but do you get around that boat launch much?
I'm through there frequently, yes.
In that week, was there activity of boats being launched in and out?
I don't recall.
Is this boat launch known as a place where people congregate for exchanging drugs?
I would say that it's a location that is seldom used unless you're there for fishing or otherwise. In my experience on patrol here at the sheriff's office, I have come into contact with multiple people that are there utilizing it for other reasons other than fishing or launching a boat.
I guess I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
And if I understand your testimony, there were no other vehicles in that boat launch area, was that?
That's correct, sir.
And in your personal experience, were you familiar with Mr. Slater's vehicle?
I don't believe that I have actively seen it or ran the plate before. And if I have seen it, it's nothing that I've actively pursued or investigated or anything of that nature. I work in the county and it seems as though Mr. Slater lives in the county. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that I passed the car, but I've not actively investigated that vehicle per se.
And you and a fellow officer were involved in searching the vehicle, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And are you familiar with what was located in the vehicle, or are we going to hear that from the next witness?
Am I familiar with it? Yes, it was turned over to me as evidence.
Okay. Then I can ask these questions. Were there any digital scales or scales located?
I don't recall.
Obviously, if they were there, you would put that in.
Absolutely, they would have been seized, yes.
Any out of the ordinary amounts of cash located?
There was a quantity of US currency that was on Mr. Slater's person. However, I did not seize this as evidence or seize it for civil forfeiture. It remained on his person up until the point that he was turned over to the custody of Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office deputy in Schoolcraft, Michigan, for him to be lodged at their facility.
Can you share with us what that amount was?
Less than $1,000, but more than 100, in between $100 to $1,000.
Were there any ledgers, paperwork, documents?
No, sir.
Did he have cell phone or cell phone?
He did have a cell phone, yes.
What happened to that?
It remained with him while he was turned over to Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office.
So it was never forensically searched then?
No, sir.
I didn't ask this in the last case, but I'll ask it here. Do you recall what the warrant was for?
I believe it was for child support, Your Honor.
Piqued your attention to go up to Mr. Slady's vehicle.
It wouldn't be uncommon for me to do that with any vehicle that's parked there. As I exited my patrol vehicle and walked towards it, I noticed an individual that I could partially see or obscured inside of the vehicle. And just to check on his well-being, as it appeared the seat was leaned back. It wouldn't be uncommon for members or agents of law enforcement to find people being overdosed from narcotics in a public area or have harmed or killed themselves in a public area that's not out of the ordinary. As well as occupying a public space, I have the right to make a citizen's contact with any member of the public that's also occupying the same public space.
I have no further questions.
Any further?
Just briefly, where in the vehicle were the narcotics found?
They were located within the dash, being concealed inside of the vehicle. These, again, items were seized or found by Deputy Miller, later turned over to myself. It should be noted that when I was originally searching the vehicle, based on my training and experience, I know that individuals who conceal for use or conceal for sale items of narcotics or otherwise commonly use natural void spaces within vehicles to obscure their narcotics. While I was searching the vehicle with two outstretched rigid fingers, I could run my fingers in between a portion of the trim work of the dash and use little to no effort or power to drop that trim work of the dash down, indicating to me that the vehicle in and of itself was no longer in its current manufactured condition, indicating to me that the vehicle or that portion of the vehicle had been routinely manipulated, because the disassembly of modern vehicles requires either a skill set or knowledge of how to disassemble that vehicle or tools to remove that vehicle if it's never been tampered with before.
No further questions.
Anything further?
No follow-up.
Thank you. You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we should call your next witness.
Yes, the people will call Deputy Travis Miller.
Good afternoon, sir. You swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat. State your name for the record.
Travis Miller,
Would you spell your last name, please?
Miller.
And Deputy Miller, are you employed with the road patrol of the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you on duty on March 24th of 2025?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you assist Deputy Jason Van Dyken with a traffic or contact with somebody in a vehicle in Lockport Township?
Yes, ma'am.
And tell me what your involvement was, please.
I arrived on scene due to Deputy Van Dyken's extended time on his call. I want to make sure he was all right. So I made contact Deputy Van Dyken. At that point, he was about to search the vehicle. I asked him if he had consent. He said he did. At that time, he directed me to the driver's seat area of the vehicle, where he had stated that the paneling underneath the steering wheel had been tampered with and easily removed. While he continued to search the vehicle, I then focused my area on the natural void spaces below the dash.
And what did you find?
I located a plastic baggie, which in my training experience appeared to be narcotics.
And can you describe exactly where that was?
In the Dodge Charger, directly underneath the steering column, there is a small gap of a natural void space, which could easily slip items of contraband in, and it fell on a metal bracket below that, so it was very concealed. I had to get underneath the dash, and I saw the tip of a corner baggie And upon pulling out behind the dash, it revealed a larger baggie of narcotics.
Did that take up the entire space, or how big was the package of narcotics in relation to the voided space that was available?
I would say it filled the space it was in, but the area it was in was a tighter concealed natural void in relative to the larger void of the paneling that had been removed.
So could you fit more under there if you wanted to?
I'm sure you could fit more.
Okay. What did you do with this item after you discovered it?
Upon taking it out of the vehicle, I immediately turned it over to Deputy Van Dyke.
All right, did you have any further involvement with this?
No, ma'am.
No further questions.
Mr. Bush?
Deputy Miller, did you locate anything else related to drug trafficking, drug trade, drug use?
I don't believe there's anything else of evidentiary value located in the vehicle.
Did you look anywhere else, or was it just really just that underneath the dash that you searched?
I assisted Deputy Van Dyke with the rest of the vehicle, but I did not thoroughly search the rest of the vehicle.
What do you mean by that?
We searched the same general areas. I did not dive deep into I mainly focused on the driver's area where the natural void spaces were.
Was the vehicle cluttered with a lot of material objects in the vehicle?
There were personal effects of clothes and such in the trunk, but nothing, it wasn't cluttered full.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Patel. Any further, Ms. Davis?
No, Your Honor.
With the testimony of two witnesses, and I've admitted the laboratory report as exhibit 1. Mr. Bush, you have anything further?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Motion?
No, I believe that people, after the testimony of the two deputies, have established probable cause that Mr. Slater was in Lockport Township in St. Joseph County, Michigan on March 24th of 25, and that he had in his possession an amount of cocaine, crack cocaine, and heroin mixed with cocaine and fentanyl that is consistent with what could be a dealer or seller level, which would indicate a possession with the intent to deliver those items, in addition to the charge of just possessing those. It was a consent search. There was nothing unusual about that other than the voided space. It's typical that if you give a consent search, it's usually because you don't think they're going to find anything. And when there's a voided space, it would indicate that you were trying to conceal those while still giving that consent search. But they were ultimately found, and with the amount that was there and the type of drugs, as the testimony indicated, I would ask that he be bound over as charged.
Mr. Bush?
I would object to the motion. Point out to the court that the vehicle apparently did not belong to Mr. Slater. That's the first argument I've made. Second argument would be with respect to the intent with his liver and the cocaine. I think it's fairly clear that there was about maybe 7 days worth of cocaine in it. It's not an exorbitant amount for somebody to have personal use. So I would ask the court not to bind over on the possession with the intent to deliver charge.
All right, thank you. It is an interesting defense that this isn't his vehicle. But he was there. He was in close proximity of it. Again, Mr. Slater, the standard here is probable cause, not beyond a reasonable doubt. We got the state police laboratory does report confirms there were 9 knotted packages. They weighed 1, which was 377 grams. A third of a gram. There were 9 of those, which if they're all the same size would be 3 grams, which is exorbitant, but they're packaged separately. The other one, 7 grams of fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin. That's a good way to wake up dead. I don't know what the other stuff is. Phenylphenylpiperidine, ANPP. It's a Schedule II substance, but I'm not sure what it is. I don't know that I want to ingest that. At any rate, for probable cause purposes, again, Mr. Slater, similar to Mr. Talbert, I find there is sufficient probable cause to find on both of these matters. Each are close. You have an additional issue of this wasn't your vehicle. You did admit to being a crack cocaine user. And I'll bind the matter to circuit court. Similar to Mr. Talbert, I think your bond conditions are very close to his. You've also posted a surety bond. You've always, to my knowledge, made every court appearance. And so your bond will be continued. Let's talk about your bond conditions. I expect they're very similar to the last ones.
It appears on this one, they did recommend pre-trial supervision.
So are you meeting with the ladies from Community Corrections?
Yes, I just check in once a week. I check in every week.
Then just keep doing what you're doing. Now, you are a Three Rivers guy. You were on South River Road, but is that how, are you still at that house?
No, sir.
But are you still in Three Rivers?
No, I gave my attorney the new address. I'm in Ben Harbor.
Okay. All right, again, you don't have to live in St. Joe County. You can't leave the state without consent. Or you certainly can't commit any other crimes, but if you have something you have to go to, you can ask to amend your bond. In the meantime, both of these matters are bound over to circuit court. Status conference will probably be set. These are going to go through right at about the same time with the same lawyer. So yeah, I bet your next court date will be on the same day, probably sometime in September. Anyway, you've met all your bond requirements as far as my court is concerned. You're free to go, sir.
I did email you the
I
bond
saw
number.
that. I'll print it and I'll sign it.
Thank
I'll
you.
also print out that exhibit and make it part of the file.
Thank you.
All right, we did that in an hour and 15 minutes. That completes our day. Hope Judge Patterson's enjoying fishing or whatever he's done. And we'll be back in the morning.
Do you like transcripts?
Please. So I don't need to send you them.
No. I figured you guys just want to get verbal confirmation.
All right, we will stop our live stream and give our visitors time to make it home.